Greetings and welcome to Productive Discourse. Productive Discourse is a conversation where we talk about the positive interactions that take place within our community. In other words, we're constantly searching for our shiny needle of common ground in that haystack of fear. Today, we're continuing our series where we celebrate the summer, particularly the Alameda Park League, the baseball that took place in our community from the 1950s to the 1990s. Today, we're pleased to have as our special guest, Eric Shulstrom. Eric is an alum of our Park League baseball, and he took his passion and talents from the Alameda Parks into the major leagues. Eric, welcome to Productive Discourse.
Hey, thanks for having me, Steve.
Well, thanks for being here. We're honored to have you as a guest. First of all, I'd just like to ask you, it's been a crazy year. What are you doing to stay happy and healthy after this year of pandemic living?
Oh, yeah. Well, it's been a nightmare. Since the pandemic started, my whole life as a parent here in Alameda with kids that are in sports and whatnot have been just soccer and baseball and whatever. Pandemic hit and it shut all of that down. Mm-hmm. So I wasn't able to follow around my kids doing the soccer or the baseball. I missed that entire thing. So did they, unfortunately. And I didn't work all 2020 either. I'm a baseball scout now. So I didn't get to go watch any games. So I twiddled my thumbs and played video games and whatever, and hung out with my kids in the house. But this year is much better. We got to play Little League. I coached with Anthony Sanchez, who was another Park League guy, a local legend. So he and I had a team, and I got to do all-stars, and I've been working again. So, baseball is back and making me happy to be alive again.
Great. I'm just glad to see the kids out playing again. I can't imagine being stuck in the house as a kid. So the fact that they can get out playing and you can help them to develop their skills, that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Yeah, it was great. So, it was healthy for the parents too, for all the other parents too. They were just as happy as the kids. Great.
So you grew up in Alameda and you played Park League ball. What was your home park?
Edison Park.
Okay, Edison, the Edison Indians.
Yeah, that's it.
All right, good. And then who were your park directors or role models that you had?
Okay, so I was trying to think back at the names. My first one, when I was in Bantams, my first year playing, and we were called the Edison Warriors because I played on there were so many kids playing, they had to have two teams. So I was on the cruddy team. We were called the Warriors, which I guess it doesn't matter. We're playing with, at Edison, we're playing on the blacktop with rubber hard baseballs, and it was not, we're in jeans and whatever. So I guess it didn't matter. My first coach was a guy named Gil, but I've asked all my friends, guy older than me and everything, no one can remember his name, his last name. So Gil was my first coach, but then a guy named Mark Bryant, who was friends with the Rattos. He was with me for 2 years. Gary Longoria was one of my coaches. Paul Fank was one of my coaches. And Tim Russi was one of my coaches. So all local guys, all, helped me all the way through Bantams, Pee-wees, Little Coast. And there was midgets. That's right. There's another level of midgets.
Right. Yeah, well, I can relate to being an Edison Warrior because I started out a Washington Buccaneer. And the Pirates were the big team and the Buccaneers were a little team. And I think when we moved across town, I think for a while there was a cruising Mustang. And they were like the B team to the Colts. So, but that was the beauty of Alameda. You had so many kids playing and nobody got sent home. They just, everybody got the opportunity.
And it was, I remember we played the McKinley Bears. McKinley had a team. So they were the Cubs. We played their team. And even the Friends had a team. I think they were called the Falcons, their second team. So there was tons and tons of kids playing.
Yeah, there was something for everybody.
Yeah.
And that was a good thing. Now, the way it was then, I see the difference between then and with the way Little League is set up. You played for your neighborhood park, where with Little League, you're on a team and you might have somebody from Bay Farm Island, might have somebody from, the area by Grand Street, you might have somebody from the West End.
Mm-hmm.
We had a relationship with all the kids in our neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
And then we heard about the great players across town, but the only time we really saw them was when we met up and we played.
Yeah.
Now, you were the guy that went on after Park League and after high school. So you became one of the great players, but who were one of the great players or some of the great players you heard about when you were growing up?
Oh, well, I mean, there was the group of kids that were across town, David Ryder and Matthew Gardner and Cornell Childs, that group.
Mm-hmm.
On this side of the island, were, obviously Scott Slez and Rollo Bernardo and those guys on Bay Farm. But around here, Joe DeFranco was the guy. He was my age. Mm-hmm. He played for the Boys Club. He eventually, Boys Club didn't have a team eventually, so he ended up playing for Edison for a little bit, which was good. And then we were quite good before that, but when he joined our team, we were in the championship game 2 or 3 or 4 years in a row or something. So he was the guy. David, though, says my internet's fuzzy, so
that's all right.
David Target, who was my high school catcher, was a year or two ahead of me, though, was the end all be all as far as Alameda legendary guys that were in my, galaxy as far as age and understanding who was who and whatever. He was a Lincoln Lion.
Okay.
And he was, the best hitter, the hardest thrower, the best catcher. He was the guy. He ended up being the guy in Little League and Babe Ruth and going on too. So he was incredibly talented.
So yeah, there's always a lot of kids in Alameda that are really good, and they get that reputation. Yeah. Now, as far as adults go, or even the older kids, you mentioned park directors, but what other role models did you have? Either playing Park League ball, high school ball, or any other level?
Well, I don't know about I'm trying to think about role models. The dads that were around when I was playing. It's different now where dads are coaching and dads are umpiring and they're all at the field and they're watching games. Back then, one of the unique things you mentioned that you're just with your group from your local park, your neighborhood, that's your team. So you're not separated, but you also have a kid, a 20, 21-year-old kid as your park director coaching you. There's no bias from a parent, and parents didn't even come to the games. Like, they weren't even there. They were at work. My mom would come occasionally. My dad never came to a game. I don't remember any games that had 4 or 5 or 6 dads there. So I guess there weren't really, in my mind, any real role models going through Park League except for the park directors themselves. And the high school, we got to high school, and obviously Steve Yamasaki and who were my coaches at Alameda High were role models, especially Murray, I would say. But yeah, well, we played a championship game at Washington Park. I want to say we were at least midgets, maybe Little Coast. And Paul Fink was the park director, and his brother was on our team, Matt, who I played Little League with and played Babe Ruth with. But we were playing Cruzy. We might have been playing Lydecker, now that I think about it, but it was one of those 2 Bay Farm teams, Slez and Rollo Bernardo and all those guys, Jimmy Gilchrist, all those guys were on that team. And Paul Fink at Washington, we were playing at Upper Washington, our coach, I don't know why, but he got in an argument with the umpire and got thrown out of the game in a Park League game. And he had to sit on the basketball court, like behind us, and he was still kind of chirping and telling us what to do, but there was no one else, right? It was just us kids at that point. There's not an assistant coach or another adult around to run the team. So we just played and we won. So that was one of, like, even now I see him, I'm he's probably late 50s. I'm early 50s. I from time to time, and he that's a badge of honor for him to be, strangely enough, to be thrown out of a park league game. That's like the highlight of his life. That felt like it was.
Well, it's an interesting thing, and one of the themes that came up with all the episodes in this series was the leadership lessons that everybody learned. The park directors had leadership lessons because they weren't that old. They were 19 to 21 years old, but they were supervising maybe 40 or 50 kids.
Yeah.
But then you just described leadership lessons that you guys had because you managed the game on your own after your coach got kicked off.
Right.
And you probably all had a certain amount of growth experience from that game.
I guess. I don't think it sunk in, or we realized it at the time. And, you know, we may have only had 9 players. So it may have been just as us following the lineup or whatever. And, you know, he probably told us if we had to make a pitching change or something, he probably stood behind it and did it. But yeah, who knows? I mean, you learn a lot. We learned a lot back then.
Right. No double switches. You didn't do any of those.
Oh, no.
But anyway, but it's just the attitude. Our coach is gone. We're going to get through this game and we're going to win this game. That's just, you know, no matter who's pulling the strings, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. That was fun.
Yeah. So you had a lot of experiences. You played in the Park League, very successful, extremely successful in high school. You were a member of the Team USA. You went to Fresno State, the major leagues, and then you played in Japan. When was the first time you stepped on a field and you realized that everybody out there was an elite ball player?
I don't know if I ever felt that way. I think anytime you go in, the first time you try out for a little league and you look around and you're trying to feel out like where the pecking order is and who's good and who's not. I never felt like anyone was out of reach for me. Like even in Babe Ruth back in the old days, when we went into Babe Ruth as a 13-year-old and you're playing against 14 and 15 guys have mustaches and are about to drive cars, and you know, I'm talking like this, and I can barely throw the ball from catcher to first because we're playing on the full field. But even then, I wasn't like overly in awe of anything. You know, when I got to college, or being in college thinking, and we had a pretty good team my freshman year. We ended up being number 1 in the country at one point.
Right.
And never did I think that I was out of place. Obviously players got better and better and better, but it always surprised me that I didn't get to a new place and I wasn't the worst player. I never got to a point where I was the worst player.
Okay.
One thing that stuck out of my mind when I got to the big leagues though, is I remember walking out on the field and going, wow, everyone's as big as me. And that's one thing that stuck out. Like we were standing around all the pitchers and I'm looking around going, wow, I'm average. Like I'm 6'4", 225 or whatever as a player. I'm a little bit heavier than that now. But I remember looking around going, man, God, there's 7 or 8 guys that are bigger than me here. This is crazy. And there's first basemen and outfielders that are my size.
Yeah.
So that was the main thing that stuck out. But never did I feel where all the players were tremendously better than me and I was in the wrong league. I never really felt that way.
Yeah. Well, that's probably the right attitude. That's probably the attitude that gets you, or the mindset that takes you to higher levels.
Maybe, but I'm not sure that was an attitude though. It's just that, I mean, maybe it was, but I wasn't making a conscious effort to think that way. It was just, I do know that I was always, I mentioned Joe DeFranco before, Tony Fry, kids that I felt like when I didn't make the All-Stars in Little League, for example, I was mad. And that lit a fire under my butt thinking I think I'm better than them, but maybe I'm not, but I guess I got to work more and whatever. So Of course, I would strive to, I would recognize the kids that were outstanding, the players that were outstanding, the good players, and try to figure out what they were doing right and to try to raise my game. But I don't know if you can, I don't know if you can go in and trick your mind into saying, I'm going to just think that I'm okay or whatever. So, because at some point, you know, well, yeah, you have to be a realist. You can't just go in and say, you know, I don't know. It just never dawned on me that I was like overmatched and I'm in the wrong league.
Right, right. Now, was it the work ethic that took you there? You mentioned as a kid, you'd see somebody like Joe DeFranco. He might be a little better, or you didn't make the all-star team. Some people would sulk and, you know, be upset about it. Other people would say, well, what are they doing right? What do I need to work on? And that sounds like what you did.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Joe wasn't a pitcher. I would definitely try to copy kids like Fred Watley, who was a year older than me, and he was a smaller guy, really good athlete. I tried to copy things he did. I can't say that I had a crazy good work ethic. Things just sort of kind of happened for me. Like I was just always wanting to be better and throwing hard, and I wanted to throw 100 miles an hour, and I would, you know, I'd be throwing at the fields and taking batting practice or whatever, and I was playing time, and I was always okay. And then all of a sudden, my junior year, I don't know if puberty hit or whatever. All of a sudden, I was really good. I threw really hard, and scouts started looking at me, and nobody could hit me. I'm not sure that work ethic was the thing that got me better. I was bitter that I didn't make the all-star team, and I was angry and jealous of other players and good friends of mine who I felt like weren't better than me, but people thought they were better than me. And it pissed me off, but I didn't go out and have a specific training routine or like a plan. I just played and played and played. In the middle of my junior year, I just got very good. I guess I started throwing really, really hard, and no one could hit me. And I was like, whoa, okay, I just threw a no-hitter. Oh, just threw another no-hitter. And it was, I don't know, it was, I didn't sense any difference. And like I said, I didn't think that like, oh, the plan has come together. All my hard work has come to fruition. It was just like, oh, whoa, I'm pretty good now. And then I started getting offers to go to colleges and all this stuff. And I remember going into college and I was good.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't know. Once I got into college, you know, they make you run and they make you throw bullpens and you do what they tell you to do. And I just did what they did and told me what to do. So I don't know. I mean, yeah.
Who was your coach at Fresno State?
Bob Bennett. Yeah.
Bob Bennett. Okay.
Bob Bennett. Yeah. He passed away maybe 2 years ago. He's in the NCAA Hall of Fame. He was at one point the winningest, had the most wins in NCAA baseball history. So yeah. He was something else. He was a different guy. He and I didn't necessarily see eye to eye on a lot of things, but we complemented each other, I think.
Yeah. In my old life, I had a sales territory and I spent a lot of time in Fresno. And I've still got a lot of friends there. How did you like your experience at Fresno State?
I liked it. My dad told me, because I was between going to UC Berkeley and Fresno State. And UC Berkeley baseball is kind of a sideshow. Nobody really pays attention. You don't go to UC Berkeley to become a Major League Baseball player. I mean, it's a good program, but at Fresno State, they had the new stadium. And my dad said, hey, that's all they have there. It's not much going on. Everything's surrounded by the college. And he's like, you know, if you're going to school, he said this when I was making my decision. He said, if you're going to go to school to graduate and get your degree, go to Cal. If you're going to school just to play baseball and chase your dream of playing professional baseball, go to Fresno State because you don't have to study as much. You can run around and have fun. So I did that. So, I mean, I had a wonderful time. 3 years. I'm glad I got out of Alameda, far enough away where people couldn't hang out with me. Although I did go to, my roommate was Jan French, who went to St. Joe's, who I grew up, was a Franklin.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. So he he and I went there together. But it was funny. I remember coming my junior year, it was either my junior or freshman year. I can't remember. We played at Cal and I was pitching and they were yelling at me on the mound, like, "Hey, you hillbilly redneck, get off the mound, go back to Fresno, you cowboy," or whatever. And I'm thinking, I grew up like 5 miles from here. What are you guys talking about?
That's it. That's funny. That's funny.
Yeah, and it was super distracting. I wanted to say something on the mound.
You have no idea where I'm from.
Right. Yeah.
So now when you went to college or when you got finished with college and went into pro ball, who took you under your wing? Did anybody show you the ropes or help you out when you were up there?
No, nobody did anything there. It's cutthroat. So I mean,
it's cutthroat.
Yeah, for sure. And I got drafted. I got drafted out of high school and I didn't sign. The scout who drafted me was, said, hey, actually told me, he goes, "You should just go to school. We're not going to give you enough money. You should not go. We're going to send you to a place called Medicine Hat, which is in Canada. You don't want to go there." He's like, "Go to Fresno State, go and play 3 years there, develop, and then get drafted and get $100,000 or whatever later on." Mm-hmm. So, I got drafted after my junior year in college. I didn't have an agent. I negotiated my own contract, and then I hired an agent after that. But no one's there to help you out. I mean, it's every single guy, coaches included, are kind of on a 1-year deal, and it's very competitive. And the next guy sitting in the locker next to you doesn't care about you. He wants to go to the big leagues. He wants to move from A ball to AA to AAA. And I didn't really care about them either, to be honest. I just wanted to do as well as I could and move up as quickly as I can. So I would say nobody took me under their wings. Now there's people professionally that were there to support you and whatever, coaches and stuff, and try to teach you and get you moving in the right direction. But I don't, as far as being having someone like a guardian angel or something like that, there was no one there. I was a full-on like adult in an adult world, in this highly competitive world on my own, I thought.
Right. It kind of reminds me of the stories of when Aaron Rodgers went to the Packers and Brett Favre didn't want anything to do with him, and Joe Montana didn't want anything to do with Steve Young. That type of thing, because it's that competitive situation.
Yeah. A little different, my scenario. I wasn't exactly, Steve Young or
no, but it's still the same. You still, it was somebody else's job.
Yeah.
That's what it was. So yeah, definitely. So then you finished as a ball player in the United States, and then you went around the world playing ball in Japan and scouting. How has that been for you? Or what was that experience like for you?
Well, it's good because I ended up not being a very good Major League Baseball player here. I mean, you get there, and although I didn't feel like I was totally out of place, it's hard. And so I didn't do very well, which led to me going to Japan. Played there for 4 seasons, 2 in Tokyo, 2 in Hiroshima, riddled with injuries at that point, knee surgery, arm surgery, finished with a shoulder injury that I never had surgery with. So, but again, I got to make a little bit of money, which I didn't get to make here in the big leagues. So, that was important for me. At that point, when I went over at 27, 28 years old, it was no longer about playing baseball to have fun. Mm-hmm. It was about making money. I mean, really, that's kind of at 22, 23 years old, that's what you're doing. As soon as after you're getting drafted, that's where your focus is. You're doing it to make money and to try to get rich. I didn't care about being famous, but I wanted to get money. So I was able to make some money there. Met my wife in Japan when I was a player. And had I not been injured at the end of my career in Hiroshima, I may not have had my job now, which I'm a scout now for the Hiroshima Carp, which is the last team I played for. So I was injured mid-season. I was able to talk to the team, the owner specifically, about post baseball career. And I'm on year 20 now as a scout.
You're 20. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's been a weird, crazy, strange path to get to exactly where I am now. But, that's the way it is. I wouldn't go back and try to change anything because I wouldn't have my wife. I wouldn't have my job. I wouldn't have my kids. Things would be different. I'm totally content and happy with everything in my life right now.
Great. Well, one thing I know you're happy about, you just got back from Cooperstown.
Yeah.
You want to talk about that trip?
Yeah. So Kenny Arnerich, another local baseball legend. Yeah. Kenny is the grandson of Lil and the son of Ken, who coaches Alameda High. So he has a little travel ball team with kids that play a higher level of baseball, which my son Archie plays. And so he's been going every couple of years. They didn't go last year because of COVID, but they put together a little group today of this year of 15 kids, all 12-year-olds. About 9 or 10 of them were on the Little League All-Star team and some other kids thrown in there, and all baseball junkies. So they flew out and they played. They weren't actually in Cooperstown. We were in Oneonta, which is kind of a little tricky maneuver by the people there. But there's a couple facilities. One has 22 fields. The one we were on had 12 fields. There were 69 teams there. And over the course of 5 days, they played 11 games. So it was tons and tons and tons of baseball. For the kids to play, for the parents to watch, mixed in with we got to go to Cooperstown. We got to go to the museum. I had in my mind this beautiful picture of my son and me walking through the museum and looking at things, which I knew wasn't going to come true. He just ran off with his friends and we're looking at other stuff. And I'm kind of walking around by myself, but it was cool. And I got to, they have a little, every major league player has a file in their library. And so when I called the museum and asked them if I got a discount or something for former player. And they're like, oh yeah, you're free. And also come and see your file, which ended up being a manila envelope that you opened up and there was 3 pieces of paper that were like a photocopy of my career stats and a couple other stupid things, whatever. But, I have a file.
You got one there. Yeah.
In the Hall of Fame, as does everybody. But anyways, but my son didn't even want to see that. I was like, hey, I'm going to go see it. He goes, I don't want to see that. I want to go look at the rings, which is fine. But it was a great trip. I don't know if you've ever been to Cooperstown or anyone that is watching this. Even if you're not a baseball fan, Cooperstown is Mayberry. It's a perfect town. It's perfect. It's just, the weather was perfect. Everything just was perfect. The city itself is right on the water. It was just great. I mean, I would recommend it for just a very mild baseball fan. I would make that trip. It was cool.
We actually went there in 2004 when Dennis Eckersley, Paul Molitor, and Lon Simmons got inducted.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool, and exactly how you described it. And the one thing that jumped out at me is Cooperstown is about the same distance from New York City, Boston, and Philadelphia.
Oh.
Give or take a few miles. So the whole place was just filled with Red Sox fans, Yankee fans, Met fans, and Philly fans. It was just a fun atmosphere to be in. But I recommend that to everybody.
Yeah, that's cool. And Paul Molitor, he gave up my first hit to Paul Molitor.
Oh, is that right? Okay. So, well, good. Good stories. Now, it's gone full circle for you. So now you're teaching baseball to Archie. You got to go to Cooperstown. It sounds like that was just this whole experience of teaching baseball to your son has been a good thing.
Yeah, it's been neat. Although, as any dad who has a kid that's 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old, who tries to coach their son, it hasn't worked very well. I mean, I didn't coach him at a young age. I let other people coach him.
Mhm.
And finally I got to the point where I was like, I think I better step in here because they're teaching kids the wrong things or whatever, in my opinion, I thought. And everyone's like, oh, watch, your kids are you're gonna butt heads with your kid. They're not gonna listen to you. They're gonna cry, and you being around is pressure. And I'm like, oh, no, it's not like that at all. And it was totally like that. It was horrible. He hated it. It was a miserable experience. Being on the field with him, I'm glad we spent time, but my goodness, it's he's just now starting to let me give him advice without being defensive.
Right.
So, which is rewarding for me at this point. So, but at this point now, I'm totally happy just watching him play, watching him learn on his own, and waiting for him to come home and say, hey, can we work on this hitting, or what about this pitch, or whatever.
Yeah.
So he and I do that work here privately. And when he's at the ball game, he's on his own doing his own thing.
Good.
Which is perfect.
That's perfect. That's perfect.
Yeah.
So things are starting to come back to normal. Hopefully the scouting is getting to where you want it to be.
Yeah.
What's next on your bucket list?
Bucket list. I mean, I don't really have a bucket list. The thing that Cooperstown thing was a big thumbtack in the calendar in the future, right? That took up like a year and a half of my thought process. Like, oh, we're going to Cooperstown. We're going to Cooperstown. So another thing that is not directly Park League situated, but it's an Alameda baseball thing, is the World Team, which was through Babe Ruth. And I went in 1984. I went to Japan. So I was on that 1984 team that went to Japan. We split with, strangely enough, with Fresno. We had 9 kids from Alameda, 9 kids from Fresno at that point. One of which ended up being my teammate at Fresno State years later.
Wow.
But so now my son is getting to the age where he's going to be going on the World Team. So they're going to Japan next year. He's going to be too young, so I'm kind of bummed about that. But hopefully they make a trip to Italy or Australia, and I can join that. So I'm relatively confident that he'll continue to improve enough to where he'll be on one of those teams. And I got an inside track. The guy who took me, the coach, was a guy named Fernie Garcia. He's from Fresno. He was the head coach now, and he's still coaching it. So he was only 25 when he brought us, but he said, if Alameda doesn't take Archie, we'll take Archie. So,
all right, fantastic.
To go. And, I went with Don Wakamatsu was on that team as a coach too. Don managed the A's, I think, didn't he, for a while? Well, I know he managed the Seattle Mariners.
That name sounds familiar.
Yeah, he's a Hayward guy. He's been managing and coaching in the major leagues forever. He wasn't a very good major league player, but he was at Arizona State and he was from Hayward. So somehow he went on that Japan trip when I was a kid, and I was 15, he was 20, or I don't know how old it was, but I remember seeing him in Albuquerque. Years later, we were both playing pro ball in AAA, and he was out on the field talking to my roommate from Fresno State. He was out there, and I'm like, hey, are you Don Wakamatsu? He's like, yeah. I'm like, yeah, you were our coach. When I was a little kid, we went to Japan together. And he kind of looked at me. He's like, because, I was a little kid, right? I was just turned 15 and he was a man at that point. But he's like, and now we're both in AAA together against each other. And I'm like, yeah. He goes, man, I got to retire. He was like, I'm getting too old playing with kids. These are kids that I coached. Now I'm playing against them.
Wow. So full circle.
Full circle. Lots of full circles.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, that's great. Thanks for being on the show today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries.
It's been a lot of fun and just a lot of great stories. And if I can speak for Eric, we both appreciate everyone who watched and listened to our show today. It's been fun doing this series on Park League baseball. This is going to be the last of the series. We're going to actually start a new series next week where we're going to go through the Posey Tube or maybe over one of the bridges into Oakland. And we're going to do a series on the legends that played on the baseball diamonds, football fields, and basketball courts of Oakland. And that's going to be a lot of fun. So I encourage everybody to watch and listen to that series. And if you want to find out more about productive discourse, please go to our website at productivediscourse.home.blog. You'll get great information about what we do and where you can contact me if you'd like me to speak at your service club, community organization, religious group, or your Toastmasters club. So we'll be back again next week. In the meantime, please like, share, comment, subscribe, so this message can go far and wide, and we'll find that shining needle of common ground in that haystack of fear.